Aimsy here of Aimsy's Antics. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're well today because I have a crafty project to share with you. And in this week's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a DIY pizza board in a DIY wood burning project. And it is a DIY wood burning project because we are not using wood burning tools, and I think it's called a pyrograph pen or pyrograph tool. We're not going to use that. We are going to be using the Silhouette Cameo 4 to create a vinyl stencil / sticker, and then a scorch marking pen, so chemicals that react with heat to then burn the design into the wood. And we're going to try it out. So if you would like to see how to make a DIY pizza board in this DIY wood burning project, then let's get crafting. So here are all the items needed to make the DIY pizza board, and I will link them all down below if you want to check out the items I used as well. But the first thing to do is create the vinyl stencil that is going to help with the wood burning process. So here I have got Silhouette Studio open and I'm just setting it up and representing the vinyl that I'm using, which is 12 by 12, and that is the size of my cutting mat as well. Then the first thing to do is select the circle shape because we are going to replicate the size of the pizza board or the cutting board which I'm using, so that we can scale the design to the right size. So here it is 30 by 30 because the cutting board I am using is 30 centimeter diameter. So once the circle is in place, we can then start creating the design for the DIY pizza board. Now I'm going to be using a combination of words and images to burn onto the wood. So this was a gift for my friend for their birthday, so I am just creating a personalised one, and you can do whatever design you like. As long as you can make it into a vinyl stencil, then it can be burned onto the wood. So we're going for Matt's Pizzeria here. So I've just gone through all of my fonts and chosen the ones that I think look best together. So I'm going to do a few different fonts and make it look like it's their own pizzeria style cutting board, if that makes sense. So to make sure I'm getting the same size, I have just copied and pasted the text box, and then I'm just going to change up the font to suit. Before creating the rest of the design, I wanted to make sure that the two words were aligned correctly, so I'm just going to the transform tab, I believe it is called, and aligning them so that they are both central in that circle and lined up with each other before I then move on to the next part of the design. I also wanted to make pizzeria a bit more standoffish, so it looked more like the place or a restaurant type thing, so this is what I'm doing here. Then it's time to carry on with the rest of the design. So I've just copied the first font to keep a bit of continuity, and then I'm going to go into the library part of the studio to pick a design to go onto this. And because we're doing a bit of an Italian pizzeria, I wanted a little bit more of like an olive branch, just to give it a little bit more of that Italian flair feel you get from a pizzeria, I guess. So here is the wreath design that is downloaded, and the thing that I need to do first is ungroup it all so that I can select individual elements, because I don't want all of the wreath, I only want a little bit of it. And then I've just selected the little bits that I want, and I'm just playing about with different placements to see where I want them to sit on the design. Now this bit is really good to get sort of your own personalization going. You can have any image that you want on this bit. Just play around with the design until you get the one that you want, I guess. So here is my completed design. Now before we cut it out in vinyl, we just need to prepare it to make it more into a stencil. So the first thing to do is remove that circle away because we don't want that cutting out of vinyl. Then the next thing to do is around each of the words or designs, create a rectangular box, and this will act as the stencil base because we're going to be reverse weeding the letters and design out, so you're going to need a box to stick it on to the wooden cutting board. So that's what I am doing here, and trying to save a bit of space and vinyl by lumping them together a bit. Then clicking on the send tab and changing up the media to vinyl glossy so that we get the right cut setting, and I'm using the auto cut blade for this one and turning on the auto cut just so that it does cut out as I want it to. Then click send and it should send to the Silhouette Cameo 4. So as I said before, we need to reverse weed the vinyl, so this means removing the letters rather than keeping them. And this will create a space where we can then use a scorch marker pen to mark the design on the DIY pizza board. So what I am using here is some pointed ended tweezers that I use sometimes when I am doing diamond painting, and these are really good. I would highly recommend investing in some tweezers like this if you are planning on working with vinyl. It makes removing the vinyl so much easier. And as you can see, we have that square around the design, or rectangle around that design as well, to act as a stencil base. Then we need to use some transfer tape, cutting it to size so that we can transfer this vinyl onto that wooden cutting board to make the DIY pizza board. So I'm just cutting it down to size here and smoothing it on with a scraper to firmly adhere it to that vinyl. And once all the vinyl pieces have their transfer tape on, we just want to play about with the design and make sure that we are placing them where we want the design to be burnt onto the wood. So I'm just playing around with the placement here so I have a rough idea before removing that transfer tape and smoothing them down onto that wooden board. And I'm also trying to align the pizzeria in the middle, and as you can see it does look a little bit wonky from this angle, which I didn't quite realise, but again I think that adds to a rustic look maybe to the board. But yes, all you need to do is peel that transfer tape off and making sure that the vinyl is stuck to that transfer tape, placing it down in the desired place. And I like to use the end of my scraper when I'm scraping it to curl the transfer tape around it, and this helps pull it away from the vinyl and make sure that it is all sitting in place where it should be. It just gives you a little bit more control when removing that transfer tape, although I'm having a bit of difficulty in this part, as you can see. And once the transfer tape is removed, just make sure that vinyl is fully adhered to that wooden board, pushing out any lumps, bumps, air bubbles, because you want it to be as adhered as possible, because as you know with stencils they can bleed, so this is the risk you take, but you want to give yourself the fighting chance with it. And then this is the scorch marking pen that I'm using, and again I will link this down below if you want to use the same one as me. What you have to do is give it a very good shake to make sure that it's coming out at the end of the pen, and I'm just using a bit of kitchen roll here to dab it to make sure that it is coming through the nib of the pen. Then all you need to do is go over that stencil, filling in the letters and design with the pen, not putting too much chemicals on but not doing too little. It's a fine balance, and keep going until you have completed all of the design with the scorch marker pen. Just use a little bit of kitchen roll or old rag just to remove any excess of the chemicals that may be sitting up on the surface. You want it to soak into the wood a little bit, but not too much, because then it will go down the grain and your design can be a little bit ruined, as you may see in a little bit. So yes, just rub away any of that excess, and then it is time to begin removing the vinyl, because you want to remove it before we begin scorching it with the heat gun. Now this can be a little bit tricky, and you'll see how your design looks. Make sure all that vinyl is removed before you use any heat. Now I'm just using my simple craft heat gun that I use when I'm embossing on cards, and I think it's sometimes advised to use a bit more of a decorating heat gun, but this one works quite well with the scorch pen that I had. So what you want to do is just hold the end of the heat gun close-ish to the design and begin heating it, and you will see it begin to transform and darken. The longer you hold the heat gun on, the darker it will become, and obviously the less, the lighter it will become. And as you can see, I've gone for a varied design with this one, and I like the rustic look of it, although if you can see now, some of that design did bleed, and I believe this is because of how the grain is on the cutting board rather than the stencil as such, but it does give it that nice rustic look, I think, anyway. And then to finish the DIY pizza board, I'm using a wooden board conditioner just to help with the longevity of the board once it has been in use. And this just basically conditions the wood and gives it a little bit of something extra. So I'm using an old rag and placing a bit of the wax oil concoction onto it, buffing it in until it is fully adhered into that wood grain. And then the DIY pizza board is complete and ready to use. So there you have how to make a DIY pizza board using a scorch marker and the Silhouette Cameo fork to do so. I think this turned out brilliantly. It has that really nice rustic pizza look. Now that wasn't that intentional, and I must admit the scorch pen probably isn't the best way of getting a neat wood burning look, I guess, that you would get with the tool. There were some bleeding, and I did try and sand that board down so that the grain wasn't as soakable, but you know, that's what happens sometimes with projects. They don't always go how you plan them to do, but it still turns out fabulously, and it has that nice rustic vintage look, I think. So let me know what you think of this project in the comments below, and whether you have any tips on using a scorch marker pen to create a nice crisp design on the wood. Let me know in them comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, then please do give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up with all my creative and crafty antics coming up onto the channel. I also have a blog, Aimsy's Antics, which is linked down below and up above for you to check out as well. Sometimes there's just a little bit more information over the blog, so be sure to check it out. And with that said, I will see you in the next video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week, and are able to do something creative and crafty, like maybe try out your own DIY wood burning projects. The possibilities are endless, and until the next one, thanks so much for watching, and bye bye.